Thanks for joining us once again. Welcome aboard to those of you who are just joining the program for the very first time. You missed a lot, but we're going to make it up to you. We're well into season 6.
Yeah,
Brenda,
season 6.
Brenda, she didn't remember the first time we did it on TV?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that was back in 2019.
That was nerve-wracking.
We weren't nervous, but our producer was nervous.
I was falling apart. And our producer didn't believe in us.
He was nervous.
Yes.
He said he prayed the night before.
Yes.
Can you imagine? Nice girls like us. But today, we're going to talk about music. Can you imagine? We're not talking about finance today. We're talking about music. Do you know? Yeah,
Yes,
music
I know.
though.
I love music.
What kind of music I like?
I like dancehall. I like reggae.
Me too.
Yeah, I like R&B.
I like dancehall and reggae.
We have a great show lined up for you viewers because we have Clyde McKenzie. He is a broadcaster and a music producer. Clyde is one of Jamaica's leading advocates in the music industry on maximizing the potential of the Jamaican music industry.
But I'm not going around it though. I think Jamaican music is inarguably the best in the world. But even though I think Jamaican music is the best in the world, I really want to hear what Clyde has to say. He'll talk to us about how the music industry can improve the Jamaican economy. But before we hear from Clyde, we want to hear from you. It's time for the Street Check. How can Jamaican artists capitalize more on the global music industry?
In more developed countries, entertainment is seen as business, not just fun.
Sing songs that more people internationally can understand. I realize that the songs that tend to go global easily are the ones that are pretty simple, pretty catchy. It's not very violent. Matter of fact, it doesn't have any level of violence in it. Right? I can make reference to Omi, the song Cheerleader that was released back in about maybe 2014, if I'm not mistaken. How simple that song was, right? So if you want to capitalize on the world stage and build a Jamaican brand in terms of the dancehall music, cleaner music.
We have to have support from the helm, from the highest, from the government level to the parental level, all aspects, because Jamaica is a factory for talent, music, skills, and that's who we are as a people, so we have to invest in our people.
We can't wait to see when the lyric is actually back to a place where you can say to yourself, say, you know what, let me go take up a dictionary, let me go take up an encyclopedia, let me look what the artist is saying to me and see what I can gravitate from it. Not the nursery rhymes that we're hearing, no, because anybody can sing about scamming, anybody can say about this, but come on. You're saying that you're singing about what's going on around you. I get that, but are you trying to improve on what's going on around you?
You know, guys, thank you. Some of those are good responses. Thanks to our friends in the streets. Guess what time it is? It's now time to meet our special guest. He's broadcaster and music producer. And get this, he's one of the gentlemen behind the founding of IRIE FM, Clyde McKenzie. Welcome to Centrally Speaking.
Welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Sheena, how are you?
We're good, thanks.
It's good to have you.
My pleasure.
We're talking music and finance.
Share with us what are your views as music as an economic driver?
Well, I think it's abundantly clear the benefits that can be derived from exploiting the opportunities available through music and entertainment. A recent example is what has happened with the One Love movie. Now, the fact is it has been financed externally, but it has provided a considerable level of employment for Jamaicans. And that is some of what is possible from entertainment and music. Now, if you look at what I call the absorptive capacity of the music and entertainment sector, you will see that it is able to employ such a vast array of skills. If you're a carpenter, if you're a plumber, if you're a cosmetologist, if you're a teacher, because you can be a tutor for an artist child, you know. So there are so many different areas that you can be employed in if you are involved in the music business.
From your experience, how have other countries used music, the music industry, as a significant economic driver And how can we do it if we have not been doing it?
Different countries have employed different techniques. Some are more private sector led. Some, in rare instances, are really directed by the government.
Okay.
Sometimes you have a hybrid approach, but in most instances, and I mean, perhaps the most successful example is the United States, where it is primarily private sector driven. And what has happened is that individuals have come together in different ways to generate revenue and income from entertainment.
Right.
So you have a group of people who might decide that they're going to be producers. You have another one who is going to be the engineer. You have people who are going to be the marketers, and you develop an ecosystem. Jamaica has an informal kind of structure. It is not as well developed as it should be, but I think we're getting there. And I think what we have to do is make sure that we concentrate more on indigenous investments in the music and the entertainment sectors. Because what has happened is that the more lucrative segments of the value chain have been controlled by foreigners. What do I mean by that? So we are what we call primary producers. So we make the raw material and other people benefit from adding value, so to speak. And so they oftentimes move away with a more lucrative segment of the benefits. I think greater emphasis will have to be placed on indigenous investments.
Okay.
And that indigenous investment might not necessarily have to come from Jamaica. It might come from Jamaicans abroad. So I like to call it indigenous foreign direct investment, which is a kind of oxymoron. But it means that you have Jamaicans who are willing to invest their foreign exchange and their money into the economy and into the kind of ventures that can bring value, which is entertainment is a big part of that.
Okay.
I mean, about almost 20 years ago, I floated the idea of having some kind of instrument, which would attract funds from Jamaicans abroad.
Okay.
That could be used to finance some of our local productions in film, in music. And I think
investment instrument, you mean?
yes, so it would be something, a bond type issue, that you would basically float abroad. So Jamaicans abroad and here too could have an opportunity to invest. So what we're talking about with a fund, for example, at JamPro, which is $1 billion Jamaican dollars,
Right.
we could get significantly more at our disposal to carry out the kind of projects that we really want to invest in.
It is evident that we have contributed or left an indelible mark on the music landscape. We've exported reggae, ska, dancehall. But in terms of monetizing music for us as Jamaicans, what are some of your tips or what are your thoughts on the matter?
There are a number of things that we need to do. We have to look at the gaps.
Okay.
What are the unmet needs? And as I indicated before, one of them is the question of capital investments, indigenous capital investments, in terms of if you really want to see the entertainment sector really making a big impact on national development, then that's what should be done. When you look at Ariana as a property, and I mean, I use that word loosely, and what she generates,
Yes.
and you realize that this is a small portion of the wealth that she, as an individual, has generated, then you begin to understand if, for example, Caribbean investors had made the kind of investment in a property like Rihanna, what would have accrued to this region? economically. And you have to concede that entertainment is really one of the quick ways, as far as a low-hanging fruit, of generating wealth. Bob Marley is a case in point. Rihanna is one of the billionaires in music.
Yeah.
And you look and you see people like Kanye West, you look and you see people like Jay-Z, and you see how fast they have managed to become billionaires as a result of their being involved in the music industry. And so I think if we focus on how we can make more of these type of people. I mean, so we have had our own, the Shaggies and the Sean Pauls.
Yeah.
They've done well financially. And then you have a whole host of secondary players that you might call them that have done tremendously well. And what they have done sometimes for their communities, and in terms of being able sometimes to tamp down on the crime, because they provide a source of welfare for their communities in many instances.
Right.
So even if you're looking at it from a crime reduction strategy, this is a very good approach to dealing with it, because there are many kids in some of these communities who you can't reach them by appealing to them to try traditional modes of employment. They want to be independent. They want to be autonomous.
Yeah.
So the gig economy is what appeals to them. They don't want to go for 9 to 5s.
Clyde, taking you back to an earlier point you made, that some of the more profitable aspects of the music are the profits are enjoyed by, may I say, parties external to Jamaica.
Yeah.
Which aspect of the music are more profitable? What were you speaking about?
Today, I think the most profitable pool in terms of the music business is really concerts and live performances. When you see the kind of earnings that a Beyonce or
Yes.
a Taylor Swift that they're making, then it's mind-boggling. What has happened is that the business model has shifted. Prior to about 2000, what used to happen is that live performances were used to assist in the promotion of the sales of recorded products. So the live events were considered, and touring was considered to be a promotional tool.
Okay.
The model has flipped. I mean, Napster and Nutella and those kind of file sharing software. What they did was they turned the business model upside down. Now, strangely enough, that was the prevailing model in Jamaica, because for years that's where our artists would make their money from shows. They would promote their music and make sure they get the shows, because we have not been people who have benefited immensely from the sales of recorded products. And I've always said you can't use record sales as an index for the popularity of Jamaican music.
Right.
Many of our songs are not, I mean, even Bob Marley himself, I mean, was not a massive selling artist during his lifetime.
Right.
You know, and you can't compare anybody to him in terms of impact and influence.
That's true.
So the consumption patterns in terms of Jamaican music is different from other music form. And I think now that model that prevailed here is now moving into the mainstream.
Yeah. All right. So we are speaking with Clyde McKenzie, broadcaster and music producer. Centrally Speaking, we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back to Centrally Speaking. We are having a very interesting discussion with Clyde McKenzie, broadcaster and music business. May I say mogul? Clyde, I want to talk to you, or rather, I'd like you to talk to the practitioners of music, the business people, the producers, the DJs, the artists, and other persons related to music. How can we reset our minds to think globally?
Well, I think we should, as much as possible, try to apprise ourselves of the developments that are taking place around us. Now, things are happening at warp speed.
Yeah.
You know, you see, for example, the issue of UMG and TikTok.
Yeah.
You see, for example, the situation with TikTok and the American government and the Congress forcing TikTok to be sold to a non-Chinese entity. These are developments that have implications for how we treat with our promotion or marketing of our music. TikTok is a significant player in terms of just spreading the word.
It is.
music, right?
It is.
And so we have to be abreast of those things. The trends that are taking place, we have to be knowledgeable of them. Now, an artist might not need to burden himself with all of this arcana, but management and people who are saying and proposing to be taking charge of an artist's career, they need to be conversant with these issues.
Right.
They need to stay on top of these things, because if they don't, then you're going to have problems. You're talking about issues of intellectual property,
Right.
and how we treat with those matters. A lot of value resides in who is your manager, because that is a function of his or her negotiation skills.
Yeah.
If I have a good manager, he is able to extract greater value on my behalf than if I don't have a good one. And it's not just a question of his or her Rolodex. It is also a matter of the skills he can bring to or her to bear on the negotiation. So somebody would give me 2 points or something, but he will get or she will get 3 or 4.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing that is very important. And also understanding the markets. I mean, for example, I think we are too obsessed with the American market, for example, and going directly into the American market. And I think, for example, we know how lucrative and how important that is, but I think we should be concentrating on taking perhaps a more indirect route and getting there with perhaps more bargaining power. We have a natural affinity to the Latin American market. That's where we're situated, and reggaeton is a big
Yeah.
phenomenon. That's a natural synergy there, potential synergy. We're talking about Africa and Afrobeats and what is happening there, because a lot of energy and a lot of focus is being directed on Africa from the mainstream markets in the United States. Spotify and everybody's going down to Africa. So that's a way, it might be a roundabout way of getting to the American market, but it might be a good way of getting there.
So, Clyde, you spoke about a myriad of skills just now. Current affairs, negotiation skills, business management. I want you to share with us how the educational system can help our musicians, even at the lowest level, to develop within the space.
I think the development of technical skills
Right.
is very important. One of the things is that we are sometimes disadvantaged in terms of performance skills, because, you know, you take some of these stars in the States, you know, a Britney Spears, who, you know, might be associated with Mickey Mouse Club, and these people who are able to learn the craft from very early, and the proper approaches and techniques. And in many instances, we have to be reliant on intuition and natural skills.
Right.
And I think we can do better in terms of what we do in terms of intervention at the primary and secondary level,
Right.
in terms of how we educate people. I think also we need to be able to find creative ways of certifying tacit knowledge. So rather than having people moving to institutions, sometimes the institutions could move to them in their natural environment, and accredit skills that already exist and needs to be formalized.
Skills that are germane to the area already.
There are a number of ways that I think the state can be of assistance to the music industry. One of the conditions that even free marketeers support with regards to government intervention is the question of market failure. And in some instances in the music business, we see evidence of market failure and therefore a justification for intervention.
Now, what do you mean by market failure?
Market failure in terms of there's a need for the government or an external force to come in and fix something.
Okay.
Whether it be funding or training or whatever it is to make an industry viable. Now, government can be of assistance in terms of funding. Now, I spoke earlier of the issue of the bond. Now, that doesn't have to be a government-led initiative. It can be a combination of private-public sector, but I mean, you have investment houses here that could take on, float that bond or whatever instrument that might be. So I don't think it's necessarily something that the government has to do. In terms of just the laws, that is very important because legislation can lead to an increase or a decrease in terms of revenue that is generated. The copyright laws and laws on patent and trademarks, those things make a difference in terms of how people can profit from the business.
Right.
And it is important and imperative that, government really pay attention to those issues. People have spoken about the Disneyfication of the copyright industry. And that is really the ability of powerful entities to induce the legislature to do their bidding in terms of passing laws that will allow them to profit. And some of these laws actually retard the growth of the industry.
Right.
So we have to look at that, and that's where government plays an important role there.
If, for example, a child were to say, Mommy, I'm interested in becoming an entertainer, what is the advice that you would give to that parent in terms of a response?
First of all, I would tell that parent, if the child is interested in something, you should allow that child to follow his passion. If you really want to achieve the kind of levels that a Bob Marley has, you have to be passionate and you have to love what you're doing. It's not a question of thinking what is the most prestigious or what you think is the most financially viable. It is a question of following your heart and being the best that you can be. And entertainment is such a wide field. So you can decide to be a lawyer and go into entertainment. You can be a doctor and your focus is entertainment. Just as though you can be a doctor and you concentrate on sports. So the possibilities are endless. So if I have a child who wants to be involved in entertainment, I would encourage that person to say, look, you need to make sure that you learn as much about this thing as possible, because that is important. You need to inject yourself in this business and immerse yourself in this business as much as possible, because you want this thing to become second nature. Whatever you're doing, it must become so natural that it's like eating or breathing. And that is when you know that you are in command of what you're doing. And that's when you are on the crest of greatness.
Clyde, we could continue this conversation for hours.
We could.
We really could. But we have run out of time. You have been absolutely riveting, and the gems that you've dropped. You know what I mean? You put them in an earring.
Or in a necklace. Yes.
You're so kind.
Of course. You have been watching Centrally Speaking. There is more after return from the break. You might have enjoyed our interview with Clyde McKenzie, music entrepreneur. And I know you were listening attentively, but you still missed a couple points. So that is why we are doing the Fast Facts. Number 1, the music industry has an enormous absorptive capacity for employment due to the wide array of skill sets that it utilizes. Number 2, indigenous capital, that means Jamaicans investing, has the potential to create significant wealth through music festivals, which will impact tourism, particularly in tourist arrivals. Number 3, the most profitable area of Jamaica's music industry is live performances, such as stage shows. Number 4, the consumption pattern in Jamaica for music is different from many other countries, as we traditionally placed emphasis on attending stage shows, while other societies, they focus more on purchasing recorded products, like CDs, albums. Number 5, the preservation and management of intellectual property can be a significant source of wealth and a major economic driver. We learned a lot, didn't we? Yeah, that has been our Fast.
And that's our program for this week.
And quite a program it has been. We've been discussing music. That idea that was floated several years ago, he said, about floating a bond, not necessarily government driven, but floating a bond that will help to fund the music industry. And importantly, having indigenous investment. That means Jamaicans investing in the development and the furtherance of the music industry, making it more formalized.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's program, so follow us on X and Facebook at Central Bank JA and at Central Bank Jamaica on Instagram and on BOJ's YouTube channel. You can also visit our website at www.boj.org.jm.
And before we go, Sheena,
yes,
we need to say some hellos.
Hello.
Yeah, we need to say hello to the staff at Bank of Jamaica.
Yes,
Yeah.
and specifically the Financial Institution Supervisory Division.
Yeah, big up FISD.
FISD.
Big up banking currency operations.
Yeah.
Big up them money people.
Yes.
Of course, tuning again next week to Centrally Speaking. This week we were musically speaking, but
Yes.
next week we're going to be centrally speaking. Same time, right here on your station, where we will have another special guest. I'm Anna.
And I'm Sheena. Thanks for watching. Centrally Speaking is a production of Bank of Jamaica.